customize your installation to better fit. So,
Yep.
Eric,
Thanks, Makai.
it's all you.
All right, so thanks everybody for coming. We're going to talk at a very high level about customizing some of your installations for Chargent. We're not going to delve deep into the code or any of that kind of information, but just show you some things that with enough imagination that you'll be able to accomplish on your own. So some of the goals we're going to start out with, first thing I want to do is kind of reset everybody's perspective. A little graphic there kind of gives you some information. Everybody, we have Salesforce and we have Chargent, and sometimes understanding where the two fit is kind of hard to understand. You know, Chargent is Salesforce. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but that's kind of, to get that right perspective, will help you understand what you can do to customize it. You know, along with that is knowing all the pieces and parts of Salesforce and Chargent and everything else. You have all these things that are given to you, and the only way to make them into something is to know how they work. And you end up with something that's pretty imaginative at that point. And then hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have some sort of inspiration to take back with you. We shared some things with you, get your mind going, and you've kind of have some ideas for where you want to go with it. So first thing, perspective. Chargent is Salesforce. Just keep that in mind. Everything that we have is all within your Salesforce instance. There is nothing in there that is an external service or some special, unique, mysterious thing that you can't access. So all the fields, our code, our API, everything is built within Salesforce. So if you ask the question, can you do it in Chargent, kind of change your thinking a little bit. Can I do it in Salesforce? Yep, then you can do it in Chargent. So it's not a unique situation. And we all know Salesforce is like a blank canvas, right? You're given this instance with pieces and parts that are there to get you started, but it can turn into something dramatically different than what you envision it to be to start with. So it really is a blank canvas. You can do anything with it. Your customizations are only up to what your imagination can do. Again, limited only by your imagination and your skill and budget. Documentation is on our website. We do have pretty detailed step-by-step documentation. So detailed, in fact, that if you miss a step, it's not going to work like you expect, because it is literally a step-by-step process. We have all the information for all the pieces and parts we talked about earlier on the website. We have a support team that's available by phone to help you out, to understand those pieces and parts and what it is that, payment request does. What is the status field control? What is the recurring payment fields, what do I need to set, things of that nature. Our support's available by phone. Desmond, will pick up and walk you through every step of the process. We also have email support. Sometimes that's a quick way to get an answer that you don't need to have a lengthy discussion about. So again, knowledge, understanding what's going on, those are your great resources. So with that, let's get on to some stuff that we can actually customize. Payment requests. It's not what they're cracked up to be. It's not what it seems to be when you're starting to customize it. Yes, it's a link that you send out to someone that they click on that collect a payment. But it can drive pretty much anything else within Salesforce. You have your standard implementation, which is just the URL, like I said, you send to someone. You can fully customize it. And you can, I think someone here was talking about having a form somewhere where somebody inputs some information and then you collect payment. And they may or may not be logged into Salesforce, what have you. If they're not logged in, payment requests can come into play. So with that, I'm going to step back here a little bit because the demonstration has some actual examples. First thing is a standard payment request. So this is your opportunity. I think you were here for Brett's demo earlier, potentially. If you weren't, we'll go through this here real quick. But to create a payment request, you simply just click on the Send Pay Request button. And I hope nobody owns t@t.com because they get a lot of emails from me. You're going to send the request, and it'll refresh your page. And since the laser pointer might not be working, you'll notice over here in your payment request related list that we now have one record. And with our standard implementation, an email would have been sent to the customer. They get a link, they click on it, and this is what they see. Standard payment requests. One of the things we can do for you as part of our additional services is if you don't have the time or ability to set this up, we can help you with that. But this is standard, out of the box, very minimal configuration. There's no special CSS or website information. It is just a payment request. And you can enter the credit card information just like in Brett's demo. Again, it works on if you put a wrong character in. Notice how the box around it changes to be red. And it automatically knows it's a Visa. And put in my security code, but I don't know where to find it. You have nice little pop-ups there that give the customer information. Pick your expiration dates. We'll say 20. I'll hit charge. We're done. Customer just made a payment. Standard payment request functionality. So let's do some payment requests on steroids or with dual identity. Fully customized. City Barbecue is one of our customers that gave us the ability to show this. We've taken the payment request. It's now after this page. We've intercepted that URL basically on Salesforce. And this is the opportunity for that customer. It was a catering order. Oh, I ordered that. Did I eat that? Oh, okay. So this is a catering order, and it shows basically all my line items, right? It shows, invoice has all their logos. It was custom formatted to show, exactly the information that customer wanted. And I thought the service was pretty good, so I'm going to give them a tip here of $20. And you notice how the amount down here will change. And once you do that, this is their form that the payment request, again, was sent out. They clicked on that link, and instead of going to the default one, they went to the page where you've captured some additional information. And then I'll click Pay Online. And once they click Pay Online, we come to the payment request component that you're familiar with. Now, the neat thing about this, what they've also done is, I don't know if I have a gateway set up in here or not. I forgot. Salesforce has a lot of people using it today. All right. Oh, I didn't do the right payment amount. I only did 85 cents. But now they come back to the same link they were sent, and they can see a payment history of all their charges and everything that's happened for that payment. Again, this is all done leveraging payment requests.
That's on do they need a login for that?
Nope. They do not need a login. So our payment request technology does not need a login. It has encrypted information in the URL using 256-bit encryption that allows that site to find the record that it's supposed to be using. So, yes, question?
Just out of curiosity, if you have, we send a payment request and it's to someone who has a significant balance, and they want to set up some kind of incremental payments, like you were showing earlier, monthly, bi-monthly, all that. Can they do that via the payment request, or can they do that at all, or do they have to actually have to talk to a representative?
The answer is yes, they can do that. How you do it is going to be another discussion, right? So you can essentially do what I'm going to show in this next section, an unsolicited, where you could build your page to maybe they have a customer number. They enter that, and maybe they pick a payment date and an amount, and then they make a payment off that. We'll talk about that later. There's multiple ways to do things in Salesforce. It's just which one's the right way, and that's a discussion that you'd have to have. Sir?
So far, the functionality you showed us requires the premium payment request and not the platform.
It requires Sites Edition as a minimum.
Okay, which
the middle one.
The middle.
Some of the stuff that I'm showing may, depending on how you implement it, require Platform Edition.
If they do, would you mind saying or pointing that out?
If you're using our API, then you need the Platform Edition. So I'd have to go back and look through the code to see if we're using our API and some of this stuff. It's been a while since I actually implemented it. So I don't want to say out of turn. Real quick.
So the invoice and the payment history, the ones that the forms intercepted,
Mhm.
is that like a third-party app that they're doing that with?
No, we developed that custom.
Oh, is it like
Yeah, just a Visualforce page. And then there is a third-party intermediary called SpurDoc that takes bootstrapped Visualforce pages and puts them into a proper PDF. Because Salesforce's PDF renderer can't handle Bootstrap.
What's that called?
SpurDoc, S-P-U-R-D-O-C.
So the previous screen where it showed the page and the details and they could add the tip, was that created in Sites?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a Visualforce page on Salesforce sites.
And is there a difference between Force.com sites and Sites, or is it the same thing?
There is some minute differences depending on your context, but no. It's just the site. If you're talking, some people confuse sites with site.com, which is a different thing than sites. So that is the fully customized. Now the other thing, we did this last year for our trip to Russian River Brewery, and we didn't want to send anything. We sent out notices to our customers, but no one had a specific link. So we just wanted to have a static web page, collect information, and allow the customers to make payment at that time. So you'll see Dreamforce 15. This was our web page that we created. That is basically just given the information. There's no link to anything in Salesforce. You can see in the URL, it's simply a page, right? So there is no customer in Salesforce. There is no anything. Now, it will look it up on the back end if someone enters an email address that already existed. There's code behind the scenes, what have you. But on a basic level, I can come in here and, again, I hope that email does not exist. So I filled in my information. I don't have an invite code, so I'm just going to hit continue. And what it's doing now is going and looking, finding duplicates, creating accounts, creating opportunities, creating the payment request, grabbing the payment request link behind the scenes, and then going to redirect them to the payment request page. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wow, took a guess. We're now at our payment request page. Now, I'm not going to do the credit card. We've done that enough here. But what I will show you is if I go to the account now record in that same org, I see that there was an account created today. I put in somewhere as the company. So I now have an account record created with just some basic information, right? There wasn't a lot that I had entered onto that page. And then we also have an opportunity. I should go back to where I was and click on opportunity. And we also have an opportunity that was created. Now, one of the neat things about this, and it's not necessarily on my slide, but we also have typically the payment request in our customization, you have a spot for one URL for a payment request. You can have, there's a way to customize it to have a payment request page, site, branding per product. So let's say you sell 20 different products and they have different branding logos or different things you want to show someone on that payment request page. There's a way to do it to where based on the product that the customer has purchased, you show them a different branded page versus others. So there's all kinds of customizations you can do around payment requests. So it's not just a link. And that's one of the main things I wanted to get out of payment request. So did I cover that sufficiently? Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes?
Sorry, you may have covered this in earlier thing, but so that payment request form, does that send that back to Salesforce and then Chargent runs it, or is that running it immediately when they submit the payment request form?
So in the payment request form, it is doing it all in memory because we don't, if you have tokenization turned on, it's doing it all in memory, sending it to the gateway. It does update records in Salesforce, and it does get the information back into Salesforce. But it does go through your Salesforce connection. It's nothing outside of Salesforce, I guess you can say.
So I guess what I'm asking is, does that happen immediately when they submit that? It's running it through the gateway?
When they hit charge, yes. Any questions over here? All right. So let's leave payment requests behind. Hopefully you have some ideas from that. So another thing, gateway automation. I think Brett talked earlier. Micaiah is going to have a talk on gateway fees and things of that nature. But depending on the credit card type, And wait, does anybody not know what a gateway is? Okay, I don't have to explain that then. Huh? It's a mall? Nope. I will say it though for the camera. Gateway is an intermediary between you and your processor. So they receive the information you send them, they make a determination on whether or not that card is approved or declined, and then they handle all the paperwork and everything to send it off to the bank to get your funds deposited into your bank account. So a gateway is the one that receives all the information. So one of the use cases is a gateway. You may have multiple. You may have one gateway for ACH. You may have a gateway for Visa and MasterCard and another one for American Express. You know, depending on your situation, depending on the fees that you get or the rates that you get from a gateway, you may want to automate which ones go with which orders or opportunities that you create. By default, if you have one gateway active, it will automatically assign that to every record you create that you're going to charge against. However, if you have multiple, you actually have to select it in order to charge that record. So one way to automate the process is using those fields, payment type, credit card type, things of that nature. You can automate the selection of the gateway. So here on this record, I'm just going to show a quick example. We have authorized.net. Well, if I come down here, and let's just say I come in and I change this to be a check. And when I save this record, I don't have to select anything. You're going to notice that it changed to payflow, just because I selected check. Now, there's a lot of other things that you can do around this, but it's just an example of automating your gateway to select the correct one based on your business requirements. Another use case, the big one, is backup gateway. If the gateway goes down, you want to be able to automatically switch around. So you can have some code set in there. If this gateway returned, a couple error responses, unavailable, whatever, after a few tries, set a setting, have it switch the gateway on every subsequent charge until someone changes it back. So that's a good way to use it. Then you just basically got to add some objects, some fields, and some different things on the gateway, which again goes back to knowing Chargent and Salesforce. Our objects, our gateway, our transaction, it's just a Salesforce record. You can add your own fields on it. You can add your own formulas. You can do whatever you want to add to that record to support your own customizations. Someone mentioned earlier about dunning management. Everybody has a different viewpoint on what that looks like. However, we do have a little small example of that in here. Micaiah has a presentation later on product roadmap, so if you want to hear about what we're going to do around that in the future, stick around. But basically, dunning management, when you have a declined transaction, you don't want to have someone go in and go, okay, today I had these declines, I need to call these people, and I need to do these things in order to capture those funds. Kind of want to automate the process a little bit so you don't have to have all that manual labor. So as an example of that, again, I have an opportunity here for $233. Now this transaction was created as approved, so it's only there so I don't have to do it. I'm going to pretend now that this is a declined transaction that was just created. So now we have a declined recurring transaction, and our payment status is set to error on the opportunity, so no future payments will be taken until something is resolved because it was returned as declined. But then what we have is we have a record up here called a dunning, I named dunning. That has the created date, the transaction that initiated that dunning record, the retry date, and the status. Retry being, you'll have a batch process running before ours that looks at all those dunning records, and it says, okay, I have one on 10/8, so on 10/8 when that runs, it's going to change the opportunity back to recurring status and attempt to make that charge again when the batch runs. When our Chargent batch runs, it'll process it. If it gets a failure, then it will create another dunning record, potentially, depending on your setup. So that's how you would handle some of those situations. And the exact way in which you do it is only up to you. Questions on that at all? Okay. Self-service, another use case, a little offshoot of dunning management to do it a different way. You have people who get recurring payments declined, and you want to provide them a way to either update their card information, make the payment themselves by giving a new card and collecting the payment, what have you. You don't want to have manual labor involved in that process. So what you can do is, when a recurring transaction is declined, you can have it automatically create or friend the payment request. And based on some customizations you've made, it'll send out a different workflow or email alert to the customer than the ones that you send for your normal payment requests. And as an additional automation, you can say, okay, this payment request was because of a recurring failure. So no one's looked at anything yet, right? You're trying to have that customer make a payment. Someone needs to know if it doesn't get paid. So you create a workflow rule that says for these payment request types, send someone a notification if it doesn't get paid within 7 days. Then your manual labor can come in. This is an example of what we send out, so hopefully you don't have to see this because it means your subscription payment was declined. Basically, tells how much it was, Visa, what card type, what the last four was, so that you at least have some reference on what was declined. And we have a button. They just click on that, and when they click on that button, it automatically takes the payment. It updates the opportunity from error to recurring, changes the next payment start date to be their next due date, and no one had to be involved in it at all. So self-service. Some things that you need to be careful of whenever you're doing customization with Chargent. This is a financial, system in some respects. You have transactions that you must have in Salesforce. You don't want to be in a situation where a customer's card was charged, the gateway has collected the money, their card's been charged, yet in Salesforce you have absolutely no records to show for it. That's not a good situation to be in. Salesforce has this one issue. It's not an issue, it's actually a good thing, but if something fails in Salesforce, they don't commit the record. So you want to have all your code and everything be hardened against errors. It needs to either handle them gracefully or notify somebody, but it should not ever cause an unhandled exception to where Salesforce would roll back all those changes and not enter the transaction record, because it can't roll back what was already sent to the gateway, right? You can't change that. It's happened. So all your coding must, but you need to make sure that you handle your exceptions. Everything operating on the opportunity or the transaction, you have to be very careful of, because again, if you introduce an error, that transaction may not get inserted. We do attempt to write a log and an email notification that gives all the detail of what happened, so you do have a record of it in Salesforce, just not where you're used to seeing it. And don't use Process Builder. Okay, so I'll give a couple reasons. Process Builder will be great at some point, but in this instance, Process Builder doesn't fail gracefully. If you think you're going to say, okay, for an opportunity, I want to pull this value from the contact and use it here. With the workflow rule, if that value is blank, it just doesn't do anything. With Process Builder, you do not know that it will error and just stop all records from being inserted. So you can do most of the stuff with a workflow rule, that you can do in Process Builder. It's a great tool for, quickly building processes for admins and hopefully it comes back up. Yep. Things of that nature. There's a few other things like Process Builder, is about 8 times or more slower than a workflow rule or code, and you have an execution time limit within Salesforce of 10 seconds every time you do something. Although Process Builder can take up to as long as it wants and it doesn't error on its own, but the next process that happens, a trigger or workflow, whatever that happens after Process Builder, will throw a CPU time limit error. And again, all your records are rolled back. You now have a record in a gateway, but nothing in Salesforce. So when it comes to the financial records, transaction opportunity, whatever you're working off of, avoid Process Builder unless you really know what you're doing. And test it with every scenario, yes.
So do you have that in your documentation to not use Process Builder?
Not in our documentation. I say it mainly because it causes a lot of issues. If you really know what you're doing and you're testing everything out in every possible scenario, you can use it. you just need to make sure you have tested it with everything. And it does take a lot longer processing time. The example I use, you have 2 managed packages that run, which cause a process builder to run. Well, those 2 managed packages by themselves were fine, right? They took 6 seconds to run. So someone creates a process builder, which takes 4 seconds to run. But that process builder causes those apps to run again because they've updated records. You've now just hit your CPU time limit where everything before was working fine. So, and a lot of times you won't know it until it happens, and then, of course, everybody's scrambling to fix it. So there's very few use cases where it's desirable to use Process Builder. I'm just saying as a last resort. So with that, I tried to find at least one word that was bigger than my vocabulary. So we have prodigious customer support. I didn't want to use amazing, I didn't want to use stellar, I wanted to use something a little bit more appropriate for the work that Desmond and David do. We're available by phone. I think it's 5 a.m. Pacific to
5 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Yeah, 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific. So call that number, you'll get someone on the line. If the worst case happens, you leave a voicemail, we return it really, really quickly. We have email, and if you have a dev team that you use to do all your customizations and they are booked out until next year, but you have something that needs to be done, or you don't have a dev team and you don't have the people that you can lean on to do that, we do offer additional services for customization to help guide you through this, give you recommendations, do the coding for you, what have you. It's completely up to you. So with that, I hope you have some brilliant ideas stewing in your head, something that you want to implement when you leave, and I'll open it up to questions. Sir?
The customer who receives an exception report for like an account number mismatch, like the leading zeros are missing, is there any way of doing a synchronization to put that back into Salesforce for recurring payments?
Exception report from?
From Meritos, the bank. So they have.
Yeah, I mean, if you just use data loader, you could. The only problem is you'd have to find some unique identifier to find the ID of that customer.
Right.
Usually, if you're talking about transaction, you can use the gateway ID, but then you have to get it to the opportunity.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of workaround, but yeah, I mean, there's ways to do it. Just depending on that file, how you do it would be the question. No other questions? Did I answer them all through? Great. Thanks.